Hello everyone. I'm Mary Henson. I'm the CEO of the DSDM Consortium. And let me begin by saying that Andrew, Craddock and myself don't intend to keep you very long because we know you're very anxious to hear the real star of the show today, which is David Taylor. So I've been involved in organising this conference since it first began some 15 years ago now. I've never had the opportunity to be on this side of the microphone. And the reason is a very special one today, because this is the very last time I shall stand here representing DSDM. Over the years, this conference has brought together some of the top names from Agile, both in the UK and from overseas. And it's given me the opportunity to meet some amazing people who are trying to make a difference to the way we all work. And I'm not just talking about the speakers or the sponsors. I'm talking about people like you who come here to learn and to share ideas. And thank you for that. This conference has always tried to maintain a balance and ensure that all the various Agile approaches are fairly represented. And I think we've done a pretty good job over the years. Although DSDM Consortium is the organiser of the event, it is not a DSDM conference. And within the consortium, we see our role as serving the wider Agile community. Now, as this is a momentous day for DSDM, I'd like to just take a moment to look back and explore its beginnings. DSDM began life as the brainchild of Ed Holt, who saw the need for an open access, rapid application method back in the mid-90s. He managed to persuade an impressive group of companies and individuals to share their expertise and best practice. And so the resulting framework was a great example of what can be achieved through collaboration, especially so as several of the contributors were in competition at the time. The method evolved and other publications were added. 2 years ago, we celebrated our 20th anniversary. And just to touch on a couple of other landmarks in DSDM's story, in 2001, I called Ari van Bennekom, sitting right here before me, in the Netherlands, and asked him to fly out to Utah on behalf of the consortium. Something important was happening, although just how important only became apparent much later. Fortunately, Ari said yes, and the rest, as they say, is history. In 2008, DSDM Return was created. This was the first DSDM guidance not specifically focused on IT projects. And then in 2011, we published Agile Project Management, or Agile PM as it's become known, in association with APMG International. Agile PM has since become APMG's fastest growing certification, and the latest figures show that more than 45,000 exams have been taken. And alongside Agile PM, we now also have Agile Program Management and Agile Business Analysis. So where is all this leading? What does the future hold for DSDM and the consortium?
Thank you. Well, that was a nice reaction. Yeah, so this is what the future holds. So the DSDM Consortium has moved more widely, more deeply into the business change space, focusing around agile business change. Our mission is to be the global leader in promoting, supporting and enabling agile business. We're going to do that by providing advice and guidance and accredited professionals and implementation partners, all focused around C-level executives and their change management teams. Over the years that I've been involved with working in the Agile way and been involved with the DSDM Consortium, I've seen so many failures in Agile and adoption of Agile, which are basically down to people not understanding that it applies to a whole organisation. Some of the things you've been hearing about today, culture, leadership in an Agile way, all too many people think if those people down there did things differently, we'd get all the advantages of working in an Agile way. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Although we've had quite a lot of success around building software in an Agile way, that's where it started after all, and started in 2001 really, or a little bit before if you're talking about DSDM and Scrum and various approaches that are now considered part of the Agile family. But in 2001, with the Manifesto for Agile Software Development, that's really what kicked everything off in a sort of global way, really. And what happened over the years, that built around about the turn of this decade, Agile hit the mainstream. So, you know, as everybody had heard of it, lots of people wanted to do it. And much more recently, in the last year or so, I've started seeing sort of, I'm sure some of you have, I've started seeing some of the blogs and surveys that are being done that actually shows that the Agile way of working in the software development space is now actually taking dominance. That's where most people are trying to be successful. Pure waterfall is in steep decline. And what we're also seeing is lots of focus on scaling. Scaling Agile has been the sort of the mainstay of the presentations at Agile Business Conference really for the last couple of years. And what it's been focused around is scaling product development in an Agile way. Yeah, and there are various approaches out there, including SAFe, I think was one of the subjects of the last presentation in one of the rooms, that make a competent job of scaling product development in an Agile way. But what about taking things beyond products, beyond just software? There are lots of challenges around. Many businesses struggle to understand how they can leverage for real business advantage all of this powerhouse of agility that actually exists in some of their IT departments. Equally, lots of IT departments really struggle to be able to act in that truly agile way because the norms, the cultural norms of the organizations just don't let it happen. You know, we've heard some stories over the presentations today about, you know, sort of this filling in the documentation and compliance with a standard way of working that's been disempowering people and teams for so long. Many business leaders struggle to understand how they can implement a lot of the innovative wisdom that comes from some of the entrepreneurs out there, some of the people who have been talking about the importance of leadership in business for a very long time now. There's a big struggle to try and do that. And if you add Agile into the mix, how do we work in an Agile way, this new Agile thing? For a lot of organizations, it's very, very different to the way they've worked before. And still too many people, regardless of their role in an organization, struggle to see how they as individuals or as part of small groups can genuinely make a difference to their organization. So much so that in a lot of cases, they've even given up the will to even try. Maybe some of your organizations are like that. If you're working with a number of organizations, if you're a coach or whatever, you've probably seen varying degrees of, of extreme in this sort of challenge. So, what are we trying to do? Well, we're trying to tackle that that problem in a holistic way. By saying tackling in a holistic way, I don't mean in a great big bang. Yep, we need to make sure that the way we adopt these things, the way we start, changing culture, enabling agility within business and so on, will start with the very first step. And going back to the first keynote this morning, the steps going out into the future, absolutely right. Exactly the sort of thing we need to do. And in fact, I hadn't seen that presentation before the first keynote this morning, and I was very pleased to see how much that chimes with some of the things that we're looking at, and we'll certainly be in touch with those guys from Eon to wind them into what we're doing. So how are we going to do this? We're going to be introducing the Agile Business Change Framework. There will be some packs available which will have some of the sort of signposts, if you like, to some of the things that we're doing. What I want to do, though, right now is just very quickly take you through what makes up that framework. So what we have first within the framework is Agile product evolution. That's the mainstay of Agile right now. That's where Scrum teams are working and so on. Something that's just really starting to emerge right now and is being brought to the fore by things like the digital by default within government is this idea of really shaping customer services around products. So not just about software, but actually about the way it's used and the way people are engaged with it. Mary mentioned our Agile project management framework, Agile PM. That will continue just as it is today. It forms part of this framework, as does the Agile program management offering as well. So what we're doing here, as you will spot, is we're actually scaling Agile. Yeah? We're taking it from working down at the team level, developing products and services, through projects and programs, and ultimately up to portfolio level. And this is where we're getting quite a lot of excitement right now. Agile portfolio management properly aligned with Agile strategy. Again, the first keynote of this morning posed the question, what's budgeting got to do with how long it takes the Earth to go around the sun? Yeah, well, that's basically what we're doing with annual budgeting. It's related to the Earth going around the sun. Why should that be important? Why should businesses be interested in that sort of cycle? So these are the sort of things we're looking at with strategy and portfolio, engaging with a number of different people to sort of bring together ideas about a much more agile and flexible way of doing things. One organisation I've worked with has their sort of 7-year strategy, 5-year strategy, 3-year strategy, and we end up with this sort of stupidity. I was just talking to somebody in that organisation just yesterday, and he was relaying the story of, well, we actually really would like to do this thing. It looks like it'd be really valuable to the organisation, but you know what? It's not in our plan. Yeah, so we can't do it. Yeah, what sort of nonsense is that in today's world that's so fast-moving and where we should really be focused on satisfying our customer? That should be the big focus. So those things that I put up, they probably look fairly traditional in terms of a structure of change that gets implemented, and the big differences are going to be on the way that is done, yeah, and making sure that it's done in an agile way. The first key underpinning of the framework is about agile enablement and governance. What this is doing is it's getting into the PMO type space. Yeah? So all of those people who think their job is to make sure everybody is complying with a standard process and filling in the right documents in the right way and getting everything signed off by 32 people and all of this sort of stuff, yeah, need to be thinking differently. Going back to some of the things we heard in the keynote immediately after lunch from James Timpson, trusting people, allowing people to solve problems and get on and do the right thing, because actually they're close to the business or the customer. Yeah, they know a lot of this. So why are we constraining them by these processes? So what we need to be doing is we need to be focusing on how do we enable change initiatives, whether they are big programs of change in business capability, or whether they're just minor enhancements being made to features within software or services. How do we get that to happen in the most agile way we can? And how can we put the governance structures around it that are so important? I know there are a lot of people here who work for regulated industries, banks, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies maybe. Yep, there's all of this compliance stuff that we need to be clear about. But what we need to do is to make sure that we're understanding the needs of the regulators properly, and then working out a way that we can fulfill their needs, the regulatory needs that they have, whilst working in an agile way. I can't claim to be an expert on all legislation for all types of governance and everything else, but certainly the 2 or 3 examples I have had cause to look at, there is nothing in those regulations that say you must document everything, you must have everything signed off by 25 people and all this sort of thing. No, it's all about you need to demonstrate you're doing the right thing, and you need to demonstrate that you're complying with whatever the purpose of the legislation is. Yeah, so that's the sort of thing we need to do, is to work out how we make that happen in an agile way. And the big one that underpins all of this is this idea of agile culture and leadership. This needs to come from the top down in an organisation, okay? You listen to what James was saying in that first keynote, there shouldn't be a top down in an organisation, okay? But actually, most organisations that do exist, sadly, exist with this sort of quite firm hierarchy. And you know what? Maybe if we can get those people operating and behaving in an agile way and genuinely leading business rather than managing the business, we should end up in a position where it becomes natural to have this overt customer focus. It becomes natural for teams to be working autonomously, collaborating to deliver value to customers of that organisation. So that's just a quick whistle stop through the change framework. Tomorrow I'm going to be hosting some roundtable sessions if you want more detail, and there's also the keynote which will give Ed Holt, who Mary mentioned earlier on, and I an opportunity to take you through some of these things in more detail.
Right, so there you have it. I'm still Mary Henson, but now I'm the CEO of the Agile Business Consortium.